Hey, everybody. Master Toby Milroy here again, Vice President for AMS. And thanks again so much for taking this time out of your day to work on your business, not just work in your business. I think I say that every time, but it's such a critical skill to develop. So I think it's useful to say every time. Today, we have kind of a unique, interesting call today. We've been talking and working with so many martial arts schools here, and post-pandemic, one of the challenges that school operators have been encountering is developing the next generation of staff members in their schools and making sure that they have adequate staff and they're able to be competitive in the marketplace and things like that. And so I invited along with us on the call today, 3 of our team members from here at AMS. Remember that AMS and Atlas Martial Arts Software is about much more than just software, right? We are a 360-degree entity to help any martial arts school operator grow their business. And systemization with software is just one component of that, right? Another large component of that is school operators need assistance and skills and consulting and coaching to help them understand how to implement some of these systems and processes well. And so we have an entire team of people that work with our different market segments, our different group of clients to help them implement these procedures, right? So this isn't like you buy the next new bright shiny object and it sits on the shelf and never gets open, right? We have a team of people that help you actually execute and implement these processes and expand what you're doing in the business. So we have with us, first of all, number one, we have Mr. Sean Lee, who is the executive director for a business development department. And he helps, again, work with school operators every day, all day, helping them with high-level marketing, both grassroots and digital. He also executes and supervises the team that handles all of our Facebook advertising and social media marketing, our done-for-you social media marketing for all of our clients. So we've got Mr. Sean Lee with us. We also have Mr. Sung Oh, who's the team leader in the business development area, who again works with school operators all day long. He especially specializes in the Korean market here in the United States, folks that maybe came from Korea or they're second generation or 1.5, and they're executing and implementing strategies in their schools here in the United States that he's really been very, very helpful and very useful at folks that maybe aren't as good in English just yet, right? And need some help with that, but also that have executed more modern business practices in some schools that might have been maybe a little bit more traditional in the past, a little more old school, right? So he's been a great influence in helping a large chunk of the Korean market, especially implement new, more modern business strategies. So Sung, thanks for joining us on today's call as well. And then we also have Mark Figueroa, who's also one of our business development consultants downstairs, and he's helping us. A lot of martial arts schools sort of plug into Atlas Martial Arts Software and get all of those tendrils and systems up and running, and answers questions all day long about school operations and helping folks get sort of the door swinging, as we say, right? Get more clients coming through the front door, helping with long-term retention. So thanks everybody for joining us. We have a whole team here. So thanks for that. So we have a lot to talk about. So we have to just kind of jump right in. And just for background noise sakes, I have the crew muted over here. So let me go ahead and share my screen with everybody. Okay. So again, as we're describing today, we're focusing on staff development sort of 101. And today, this is such a vast topic and such an important area for schools. Today will be the foundation, right? We're going to build on top of this foundation in future sessions. But today we wanted to answer some very common questions that we get here at AMS that our business development team hear from, especially newer members who haven't quite implemented all of our systems yet and might still be struggling to develop staff. Believe me, by the time we're done today, I think you'll be pretty confident and understand why developing staff members is really not that tough of a challenge for school operators who've really implemented good systems for that. Some schools struggle with this, but once you overlay the systems we're going to talk about today, it really doesn't become much of a struggle anymore. So we're going to sort of hopefully solve a lot of that for folks listening today. Number next is, obviously, I'm happy to send you the slides of today's presentation. You're going to want these. So just drop your email address or a comment in the comment section down below and ask one of the team members over here or any of our others to send you the slides from today's presentation. Okay, you're going to want these. You're not going to want to miss this. And next, if it really does do us a huge service and a big favor if you help us sort of share the good word, right? And if you hit the share button on this Facebook post or wherever you're seeing this video, maybe tag a friend or a colleague or somebody that might benefit from this content or might benefit from these strategies. That really helps us out. It helps us, continue to sort of spread the good word and help as many martial arts school operators as we can. Again, with this specific topic, if developing staff members has been a struggle for you, other members of your association or your organization, or perhaps school operators that you compete with at tournaments or something like that, if this is something you've heard people, complain about or struggle with, man, we can really help them with this, right? So feel free to share this, tag them in the post or send it to a friend, and that really helps us out, and it helps out the industry, I think, at the same time. So guys, and anybody watching, you all know this well, but the beginning is always the beginning, right? And what I mean by that is you have to begin with the end in mind. And that, that encompasses a pretty wide way of thinking about the world. But especially when we're talking about martial arts staff development, you have to internalize, it's an internal locus of control. You have the biggest role to play in whether you have quality staff or not, right? And if you begin with the end in mind, if you know that you're going to need staff members, if you know that that's one of the objectives you have in your martial arts school, then you should be thinking about that from minute one, day one, right? And the first step, as always, is decide what it is that you want first. And what do I mean by that? Well, as you well know, you work with school operators that have all different objectives, right? Who have all different, what they're trying to accomplish in their career, what they want from their business, what they want from their school, what they want from their lifestyle, right? So a question you need to ask first is what is your desired role in your school, right? What do you want to be doing on a daily basis? Do you want to be the chief instructor, for the rest of your life, right? Do you want to be the one who teaches every class from now until, kingdom come, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want, there's nothing wrong with that. But for many school operators that you guys work with, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but many of the folks that you guys work with, maybe that's not what they want, right? They certainly want to be a big influence in the school and they want to be a chief voice, but maybe they don't want to have to teach every single class every single day for the next 40 years, right? Maybe they want to graduate to higher order activity. Maybe they want to be able to develop a staff to be able to do that for them. Maybe they want to expand to multiple locations, whatever the case might be, right? So number one is you've got to be clear about what you want, what your objectives as a school operator are. What do you want your desired daily role to be today? What do you want it to be next year? What do you want it to be 30 years from now, right? You've got to start there, right? And then we'll reverse engineer the rest. Secondarily, what lifestyle do you want, right? When I opened my first school, you guys probably know the story already, but when I opened my first school, I really didn't have it set up all that well. And it was I had to go through this learning curve myself, right? I had to go through a massive learning curve myself. I'm proud that I did, but it certainly was painful. And I, married my wife, my now wife, when we had the schools running, and the only way I was able to do it was we did it over a holiday break, right? We did it over like the Thanksgiving break, right? And the reason I had to do that was because we had to shut the school down for a couple of days on each end, right? Didn't have enough staff, right? I didn't have the tools. I didn't do this. I didn't clearly picture at that time what I wanted my daily life to be like. So the only way you ever get a day off, right, is if it's a holiday, or the only way you can do something like go on a honeymoon, right, and get married is if you have some way to string that together. So you have to think about the lifestyle that you're trying to build for yourself. And the wonderful thing about America is that you can reverse engineer the lifestyle that you're choosing and build the business that provides that for you, right? Now, the martial arts is a good example of a bad example, right? It certainly requires a lot of personal effort, especially early in its life cycle. But there are ways, and we'll discuss many of them today, that you can have essentially whatever lifestyle it is that you want, right? So just be thoughtful about that as we get into this discussion from today. And then the third question to ask is, what is your exit strategy? Do you even need one? Right? For many school operators, it's such a deep passion for you. It's such a deep passion for me that, you'll be operating this school or these schools for the rest of your life. That's the plan, right? But make that the intentional plan. Does that make sense? If that's not your plan, if you have different intentions, then we'll build that differently, right? If I want an exit strategy, if I want to be able to sell the school one day, if I want to be able to build maybe a real estate business and sell the whole thing as a whole, or if I want to spin up franchises or licensed locations, or whatever the case might be, you've got to be very clear about that at the beginning. This is like building a house, and you don't build a little house, with three good walls if what you want is a castle, right? You got to start building the castle one step at a time, but you have to know what the plans are before you start laying bricks, right? And that's what we need to be doing here. We have to be thoughtful about these things. Does that make sense, guys? Any thoughts on that? So this is really about, you can build whatever ship you want. I'll tell you the ship story, but you got to be clear about what that is. And so there's this Greek myth, this Greek story, this story about ancient Greece. I tell all the time, so I'm sure you guys are bored with it. But there's a story about this man who, in ancient Greece, decided that his life mission was to build the most beautiful ship that Greece has ever seen, and spend his twilight years with his wife, sailing the seven seas, right? And so his goal was single-mindedly on accomplishing that objective. And so how did he accomplish that objective? Well, he built his entire life around this, right? So one of the things that he did when he was a youngster was he started planting a lot of trees on his estate, so that he'd have plenty of lumber to build the ship with. And then he took engineering classes, and he went to the schools with the best engineers so he could learn how to build this ship. And when he married his wife, he had a lot of children, so that he'd have a crew for the ship, and he would have a lot of help, building, all this thing. So anyway, the time came to start building the ship. And this is many years later. So they cut the trees down, they build the timbers. He's already had this beautiful blueprint for the ship, and he's engineered this thing, perfectly. So he builds this ship, and his wife and his family get on the ship, and they're ready to, live his lifelong objective of sailing the seven seas. And he gets in the ship, and they push off, and they start sailing down the river on the way to the open ocean. And they get a couple of hours into the journey, and it's almost like a movie. If you could see him at the wheel of the ship looking, and he just sort of crumbles into, emotion. And, everybody's kind of rowing, right? So they really don't know what's going on. They just see the expression on his face, and they say, what's the problem here? Right. And well, it turns out that there's a bridge across the river now that's too low for the ship to sail under. Right. So the sort of moral, one of the morals, there are many, but one of the morals of the story is that you really have to build the right ship for the right conditions, right? And you want to build the right ship to get you the right outcome. And if what you want is you want to be the senior master instructor at your location, and you want to teach all the classes until you retire, until you die, until, whatever, then that's one kind of a ship. But if you want a single location that you can be a quasi absentee owner, and you can have staff run the thing, and you can, travel or do whatever it is, what other objectives that you have in, with your life, then that's a different ship. And if you want to build a model that you can license or franchise, and you can sell franchises and grow an organization or whatever the case might be, that's a different ship too. Does that make sense? So all of these ships have to be constructed differently in order to build what it is you're trying to build. So for today's session, we're going to talk a little about what some of these different models would look like, right? And some of the fundamentals that all the models need to have. First, I'm going to assume, since you're on the call, I'm going to assume that you want staff, right? I'm going to assume that you want to have some people helping you run the school, teaching classes, doing enrollment conferences, whatever the case might be, but you want help, right? You don't want to be doing everything forever. You may want to do some things for a while, for a long time, but you don't want to do everything. Okay. So we're going to start with that paradigm for today. So the decision process is, do I need staff members regularly, right? And how often is regularly, right? We'll talk about that as we move through our time today. And if so, what positions do I need to fill? Is all that I need some assistant instructors who can help maybe jump into a class every now and then when I have to go do an enrollment conference, or maybe hop into class to teach maybe a Greenbelt class once a week or twice a week or something like that? Is that what I need? Or do I need like chief instructors, right? Do I need somebody who can be the chief instructor at this location that people look to as the guide and the mentor in the location, right? Is that what I need? Do I need program directors, right? Do I need people to do the introductory lesson and to do the enrollment conferences and to do, parent, outreach and things like that? Do I need school managers, right? Do I need somebody with all of those skills plus some business acumen and things like that can help actually run the location, right? And do I need owners, right? Am I trying to develop multiple locations where I have a secondary sales market, right? And maybe I need to have ownership, people who can, own their own school through me or by me or licensed by me or whatever the case might be. So you have to make that decision. What is it exactly what is it that you need? Are you building an organization? Are you trying to build a multi-school operation, et cetera? So the moral of the story again here is you got to build the systems that produce the thing that you want, right? Just like the ship, right? If what you want is middle of the road, if what you want is, well, I want to be able to go teach some black belt classes a couple of times a week, but mostly I don't want to be teaching all the other classes. I want to focus on the higher ranks and develop masters and master instructors and maybe even grandmaster instructors. And I'd rather have staff do the rest of it. Then you're going to need assistant instructors and chief instructors and maybe some program directors, right? So you've got to be thinking about that matrix. Does that make sense, guys? Right? It's super simple, right? Super basic. But the moral here is you have to build the system to generate that stuff. And number one is you look internally first. Okay. The last place to look for team members is outside the building, right? We'll get there. So recruit inward first, right? You're never going to hire externally an instructor, a chief instructor, a manager, a program director who's going to fully appreciate what you're doing, right? If they come from the outside and are thrust into the middle of what you're doing. It takes time to ingrain the culture that you're trying to create, right? And a lot of attention and a lot of focus, right? So the people that have been indoctrinated into your culture the deepest are your current students, right? They get it, right? They know all the little nuances and idiosyncrasies of your style and of your culture and of your art, right? They know how to bow in and bow out, and they know how important it is. And, I think we've all seen this in schools that, if you've been around a while, we've all seen where, you hire the Taekwondo guy, to come help you in your Kyokushin school, and it just doesn't work right? Because it's so radically different, Now, certainly there are some exceptions. I'm not going to say, of course there are exceptions. But the first place to look is your current student body, right? Starting from the very first introductory lesson you ever do in a new location to the last one you ever do, right? You should always be thinking about that student as, hey, this is a future instructor candidate, right? This might be somebody who would go and open a school for my organization. This might be somebody who could be a school manager, a chief instructor, an assistant instructor, whatever the case is, right? So you always start internally first. You start with your current students. Then you open the circle up a little bit to like those active students' families, right? Mom and dad sitting in the bleachers, in the lobby area. Grandma, she brings the student to the school, whatever the case might be. And then maybe you widen the aperture a little larger to now look at those students' acquaintances, right? You see how as we get further from the center, we're still staying within our sphere of influence, right? We all know students, families, acquaintances. We all have, right? All of us in our martial arts schools have the super supportive uncle of a student, right? Who has, with their own two eyes, seen little Johnny go from lack of discipline, lack of self-confidence, to now 2 years later, they're running for class president and they're standing tall and they're a force of nature, right? we all have those parents and families in our schools. If not, you should really take a look at your instruction a little deeper. But we all have those stories. They're great candidates, right, for helping you in the school. Far better than somebody I just hire from a classified ad, right, or something like that, right? Because they really get it. It's not just about kicky punchy, right? It's not about curriculum so much as it is about culture, right? So anyway, you kind of get the idea. The next step I always look at is like my business partner network. You guys know well, and you guys coach schools all day long, right, on working with other local businesses, right? How to do that, how to execute that, what types of businesses to encounter, to focus on things like that. And again, elementary schools, I'm going to put into that mix. The super supportive former guidance counselor for the elementary school that you've done a lot of work with, right, is a wonderful fit compared to somebody that just responded to a classified help wanted ad, right? Or the preschool teacher that you've gone in and you've done, gym teacher for the day 5 times in the last year or 5 times in the last couple of years is again a much closer fit than just somebody that responds to a classified ad, right? So those are sort of the concentric circles that I would look at. And then finally, I'd go to cold recruiting, right? I'd go to, LinkedIn or whatever like sort of employment portals you might want to look at and look for help there, right? So you're far, far, far better off the closer to that inside circle that you can possibly get, right? And again, with what we're going to accomplish today, with appropriate staff development systems and strategy in place, can't tell you, I've never needed to go outside those inside concentric circles. I've never needed to. I've done it a few times, right? I've had a few people that came from another style, or that I had one, that's still in the concentric circle. I had one rock star staff member who was a Navy recruiter, right? Who was a Navy recruiter, but it was the mom of a student, right? What a wonderful asset, right? But if you've got these systems we're going to talk about today in place, well, you almost never have to go to cold recruiting, right? So that's sort of a barometer, something that you could be measuring in the school. If you feel like you don't have enough, you probably want to look backwards at the systems that you're operating and think about where the gaps are there. Does that make sense, right? So as a school owner, you guys know this, you guys teach this all the time, but there are like 4 things that you have to be really good at creating. You are a creator as a school operator, right? Number 1, you've got to be good at creating white belts. And what does creating white belts mean? Well, what does it mean? It means marketing, right? It means enrollment conferences. It means introductory lessons, right? It means getting people in the community to know about your school, bringing them into your school and turning them into new white belts, right? It's everything that's involved in that process. So you got to master that process, that skill. Second, that's weird. Second, you have to be good at developing black belts. What does developing black belt mean? Well, you've got to be good at retention. You've got to be a magnificent instructor, magnificent at teaching, delivering the promises that you made in the introductory conference. When you turn them into a white belt, actually executing on that, right? And turning them into long-term black belts. Number next is you have to be great at developing instructors, creating instructors, right? And program directors, I put it sort of as an aside, but what are those skills? What does that mean? Well, it means not only while they're a student are we teaching them how to kick and punch, right? Not only are we teaching them how to be a more well-rounded person and more confident, more focused person, but we're helping them with their fundamental leadership skills, right? We're helping them understand how important it is to impart these lessons onto other people, help to support the community and other students, leadership skills, business skills, personal development skills, sales skills, etc. Right? A note for later on, by the way, instructors and program directors, I treat exactly the same way. They all have to know exactly the same things. Every instructor has to know all the scripts. They have to know how to do an enrollment conference. They have to know how to do a renewal conference. They have to know every component. So do the program directors. They may not do that on a daily basis as frequently, but in my view, they both have to know all of it, right? I don't have these compartments that they don't have to cross over. And then finally, number 4 is you have to be good at developing managers or owners, depending on what it is the ship that you're trying to build, right? If your ship requires some managers or some owners to be developed, then you better build the ship, right? That does that. And what do they need? They need management skills. They need financial management skills. They need accounting skills, light accounting skills. They need human resources skills. They need to be able to make sure that they're handling, hire fire situations appropriately, that they're handling legal issues appropriately, things like that. And in my view, it's up to you, meaning in my organization, it's up to me to arm them with all of these skills that they need to be successful, right? If they're not successful, you're not successful, right? You can know all this stuff. You can master all this stuff, but it doesn't do the organization any good if you go on vacation for 2 weeks, right? Or if you're not in the room when a hire fire decision has to be made, or if you're not in the room when an enrollment conference has to happen. Does that make sense? So this is all about leadership, right? So how do we do all that? Well, you need these 4 systems. You have to have a solid leadership development system, a solid instructor development system, a solid school manager development system, and a solid school owner development system. And again, the same is true. You have to arm them with these skills. As we've talked about many times before, and I know you guys, we have clients, as you all would attest to, that operate basically every model that you could describe, from a month-to-month health club almost like model, all the way to a very high-level program structured, program-oriented school model, right? Like the Harvards of the world, the Harvards of our industry. But when you think about what I call the parallel program model, the parallel ascension model, this dovetails perfectly well in. It's one of the reasons I use it. This dovetails perfectly well in to developing staff, right? When someone ascends from the basic or orientation program, one of the things that they're telling us is they're going to be a black belt in our school, right? So if they're in our leadership program, this higher level program, I start from day 1 of that program, imparting onto them the skills that they're going to need to be a chief instructor, to be assistant instructor, to be a program director. Does that make sense? Now, I do hold back some of the more business-oriented skills until they're in my actual instructor or my staff program, right? Which is just another layer that sits right above leadership. It's the same thing. Does that make sense? So I have this delineation, this differentiation, and I suggest you do in your school, where when someone ascends, even if I have a black belt club or a master's club or a leadership program, whatever those delineations are, doesn't matter. I start delivering the skills I need for my school's success starting on day 1, right? So if you look at what you would want to have in your perfect ideal instructor or your perfect ideal program director, and you were to break that down into chunks, those chunks get inserted into the curriculum at each rank for those leadership program members. Does that make sense? So by the time they're a blue belt, a green belt, or a blue belt, certainly a blue belt or a brown belt, it's pretty easy just to pop them in a class and have them lead a class all day long, or had them lead a class once a week, or whatever the case is, right? It's not hard, right? They're really good at it by now, and we'll talk about some more strategies on that, in a little bit. Does that make sense? Guys, you get that, right? So the idea of this ascension model is like hand in glove fit. It's like puzzle pieces fitting together, and adding these leadership components, these staff development components, are just one more puzzle piece that gets stuck in there, right? Critically important. It should all just flow together, right? Again, as you guys attest to and coach schools on all the time, we provide a lot of these tools and strategies with our Atlas software users, right? So anybody that's a client, an AMS client, anybody who might be thinking about that, we provide many components to help our members develop staff members. In our MA Biz Academy, we provide all sorts of staff development and training tools for you and resources for you to use, right? Whether it's, instructor manual type, activities or drills, or the entire Leader's Edge program that we deliver on a monthly basis is about teaching students to be better teachers, better instructors, better leaders in the school, right? These kind of things. So a huge amount of tools that we provide for our clients, not for discussion today, if those tools are useful for you, go to tryatlassoftware.com and fill the form out there, and one of the guys will talk to you about that. If you're a current client, make sure that you're leveraging these tools. We provide such a huge amount of and such a high quality of programs for you that really should take. You want to make sure you're looking at that. So, let me give you some pieces of technology, right? And I don't mean by software technology, I just mean strategic technology, right? So one pieces of magic that we have in the martial arts industry is, frankly, I'll put it in simple terms, is the belt system, right? Human beings have fundamental needs for seeing progress, right? We want to see our progress. We want to feel us moving forward. And the rank progression system, just like the military uses the exact same strategies, right? Just like gaming, right? The most popular and successful games in the world have this idea of leveling up, right? You start off as a weak little character and now you move to the next level, and then you get to do cooler stuff, and then you move to the next level, and then you get to do cooler stuff, and you move to the next level, right? That speaks to fundamental human behavior and fundamental human needs. And so what I like to have, and you all coach schools in this same way, you should have a separate but connected system to track a student's progress in their level of instructorhood or program directorhood or managerhood, right? Or staffhood, however you want to describe that. And I like that to be separate from rank, right? I can have a brown belt who has accomplished a very high level of teaching skill. Does that make sense? So he's a brown belt technically in his own martial arts accomplishment, his own martial arts curriculum knowledge and mastery. But he's spent years with me mastering, praise, correct, praise. He's mastered give individual contact a personal approach. He's mastered the 12 class commandments. He's mastered the ability to communicate well to 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds. You see what I'm saying? I believe those to be separate sets of skills. You have your own personal martial arts mastery journey. Separate from that, maybe not separate, but different from that, you have a different journey, another journey in your level of mastering instructorship, right? And I like to keep that, I like to keep track of that separately, whether you have like a separate patch on the uniform or a separate thing on the belt or whatever it is, it's up to you, right? But you should have very clear blocks of instructor curriculum that they go through, and they're examined on it exactly the same way they're examined on their physical curriculum. And that exam is rewarded with some type of progress that's in fact, that's visible, all right? That's visible, whether it's a special stripe on the belt or a special thing on the uniform or a chevron or a hash or whatever it is, some way that you can visibly indicate that in the class. Probably the best system I've ever seen, in the industry is probably something like what ATA uses, right? Where they have a belt system for your physical rank progression, but then they have a collar system for your instructorship, right? You start off with a red stripe on your collar, and that means you're a trainee instructor. And then you test on trainee material and you move up to the next level to be a certified trainer, which is a half red, half black collar. Then you test on the next level and then you get a black with a red stripe. You see what I'm trying to say? So this idea of progression through the instructor ranks is different and apart from physical, your own mastery, right? And I would continue, and I would continue that through all the way to mastership and past, right? There's a difference to me. There's a difference between being a master martial artist and a master instructor, and different yet to being a master leader or business owner, right? So I think those are three different things, and you should think about building them separately, right? Obviously publicly promoting and awarding and reinforcing the people and the program, right? Just like you would do with the belt system. It's exactly same, treated exactly the same way. And by the way, guys, if you have feedback or you've heard questions in these arenas, jot them down and we'll cover them at the end of our time today. If you've heard clients ask about these things or have unclarity about that, Let's try to clear that up today. And anybody else, if you're listening now, just pop any questions that you might have in the chat area, in the comment area on the video, and I'll keep an eyeball on that, and I'll address them either here as we can, or separately by chat. Okay, so good for now, right? So what are some of the essentials in these systems, right? What are some essential components that we should be thinking about as we're developing staff? Well, first, this is not for the faint of heart. I believe that your students deserve the highest quality instruction that we can provide in the best way that we can provide it, which means I want to make sure that the instructor standing in front of the classroom, leading the class, being the chief instructor, whatever the case is well prepared and trained for that activity, right? And they can fulfill the promises that I made in the enrollment conferences. They can provide an A-class experience, right? And so we train the absolute hell out of them, right? We're doing 3 training sessions a week. Number one, we have our regular Monday staff meeting. I'm sure this is old hat for many of you, right? So please don't take this as an insult to your intelligence, but let me just set the groundwork here, right? This is like the baseline. This is the minimum I think you should be doing. And I think that I have great evidence in my own results and others that it works well. So number one, on Monday morning, we have our business meeting. So everybody comes in my view, we all come in the dress shirt and the slacks, right? This is designed to be the business meeting. So number one, we'll review the stats for the week, right? The week prior, months to date, things like that. We want to know every single thing that's happening in the school, all the metrics and measurements, right? And I like to set it up like a little bit of a competition and things like that, where they're competing against each other in a friendly way, right? Different operators, different owners, and different instructors. We're reviewing the marketing results for the week and month so far, and then the plan for the future weeks and months. And then we always cover one unit of staff training curriculum. And I'll give you my outline for this today. The thing to understand is that anything that you think they know, well, let me put it this way. What would happen in your martial arts school if you just stopped teaching sidekick for 3 months? Right? Now, in your mind, you might be thinking to yourself, well, they already know sidekick. I'm just not going to work on that for 3 months. Well, does the sidekick stay the same, or does it get worse? Right? Anything you don't practice atrophies. Right? So I basically break down the 12 most important components for a staff member to master, the 12 most important interactions or chunks, right, of their daily responsibilities. And we train one a week, every week. We do all 12 weeks in a row, and then we start over. So it takes us 3 months to get through the entire unit, and then we start back over 3 months later, and then we start back over, and then we start back over, right? So by the time 2 or 3 of these cycles goes around, brown belt gets really good at handling an info call, right? They get really good at handling an introductory conference, right? Enrollment conference, an intro lesson, right? So these are the 12 units that I use. And again, I'll send you the slides. Just pop your email address in or make a comment in the comment section, and I'll have the team send you the slides here, so you don't have to worry about scribbling these down furiously. But number one, we have to handle the walk-in. Right? Somebody just walks in and inquires, right? I also, by the way, consider that like a web inquiry, same process, right? We handle a walk-in. We handle an info call level 1. So this is somebody calling in, asking for lessons, or emailing in, or texting in, whatever the technology that they're using, WhatsApp, chat, live chat, whatever, handling a level 1 info call. And that basically is an info call without objections. Third is a level 2 info call. That means an info call with objections. They have to now know how to manage all the objections, all the common objections that we encounter. Number 4, the first introductory lesson, setting the appointment for that introductory lesson and confirming that appointment. We do 3 confirmation steps plus mail, email, text message, etc. Right? So they have to master that whole process. Next, conducting the first introductory lesson, and setting the appointment for the second intro. I do a 2 intro process personally. So we need to make sure that they're handling the first intro and setting the appointment for the second one effectively. Yikes. Third is confirming the second intro, which for me is a big issue, right? because the second intro is where we do our sales conference. So I need to make sure that we have all the decision makers in the room, both parents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we take great care and concern at making sure that we get all that to happen for the second introductory lesson, right? So that's a big component for me. Number next is conducting the second intro. Number next is conducting the enrollment conference, including getting the enrollment, agreed to and everything like that. Level 1, and then a level 2 enrollment conference, which is an enrollment conference with all of the common objections that we might encounter. Number 10 is renewal prep, which is how we prepare the student once they've enrolled for what comes next for our higher level programs. And that's a series of meetings and conversations and things like that. So you have to master that process. Number next is the actual renewal or upgrade conference. And then number next is the parent teacher progress check, which is in my schools, after every belt exam, every parent gets a one-on-one conference with an instructor and the student, right? For odd ranks, it's just an 8-minute meeting or a 3-minute meeting. For even ranks, they get a sit down, right? So it's, kind of how you want to orchestrate that. So anyway, they have to master that process. The parent teacher conference, right, is number next, right? So we take these 12 units, we train one a week. And then after month 3, we just reverse the process. We start over from the top and work our way down again, right? So number 1 is Monday meetings, right? That's the outline for our Monday meeting. Number 2 is Wednesday. We do Wednesday evening staff training sessions, which is also open to all of our assistant instructors. And this is physical curriculum, right? So this is like an evening Wednesday class that we have. We can have 40 or 45 or 50 black belts in that class many times, where this is about, and they don't have to all be black belts, right? This can be, high level brown belts or green belts or anybody in that staff, on that staff track, right? So this is hardcore martial arts training combined with mastering how to teach the curriculum, how to build their class plans. We review their class planners for the next weeks and months, how to teach the character lessons, the script to execute on character lessons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So basically everything that has to do with physical training and teaching, right? And then on Saturdays, we do a third meeting for staff. And Saturdays, I love doing Saturdays. It's a combination of both business, not a combination. I just mix it up. Sometimes it's a business only session. Sometimes it's business and physical curriculum and teaching curriculum. Sometimes it's some kind of a field trip or an experiential learning activity. I'll take them all to Disney and we'll walk around Disney and look at customer service activities. Or we'll go to Universal and we'll look at the differences between Disney and Universal, right? We'll go see a movie. We'll go to an escape room. We'll go, right? Different things. Sometimes it's in the school. Sometimes it's outside the school. But the idea is Saturday is just kind of like a grab bag, right? Whatever we need to work on, that's kind of what we work on. But I also always pepper in at least once a month, something just kind of cool and fun that we go do together, right? So anyway, does that make sense? So those are sort of 3 of those essentials in my view. Number next is we do semi-regular or semi-monthly retreat type experiences. So usually 4 times a year. Let's say differently. The big retreats we do twice a year, right? We'll do a semi-monthly and every month seminar at least once every 2 months, right? And that could be on a Saturday. It could be, right? We just repurpose one of those Saturdays. And this could be a more intensive session for that week, for that specific skill or that specific item. We'll bring in guest speakers from outside in the community. We'll bring in, people like that, but we'll do something like that at least every couple of months. I think I have some more essentials here. Yeah. I have them into the shortcut category. So does that make sense? So those are kind of like the core essentials that we're always executing. Now, so far as shortcuts go, let's say I need to develop some staff members and I kind of need to do it as fast as humanly possible. What are the cases? I want to accelerate the staff development cycle. Well, these are some concepts to execute. And I do them all the time anyway, right? Which is so I don't get into a deficit of staff members. But these are some shortcuts that can help expedite things. Number 1 is twice a year, we do a staff development boot camp, right? So once a year in the summer, and then a smaller mini boot camp over the holidays. You guys certainly have heard me talk about this before. We do it here at AMS, right? But many of our members may have heard me talk about this as well. In the summer months, you have a lot of your, teenagers and your staff assistants and things like that. They're out of school. So we'll do maybe a week long or 10 days or even 2 weeks intensive training boot camp, right? And that thing, I even advertise externally, right? So that intensive staff boot camp, I'll advertise out into the community. I'll hit all of our business partners. We'll talk to all the elementary schools and all the, substitute school teachers that we know and all of our internal inner sphere of people. We'll advertise it very heavily, and we'll want to bring in maybe 25 or 30 or 40 people for like a fitness certification course or a martial arts, instructor certification course, where over that period of 10 days, we can take somebody through those 12 units in those 10 days and get them to be competent as assistants to help us, right? You can imagine if you're doing 9 to 9 every day, you can really accomplish a lot over the period of 7 or 8 days, right? So we do one extensive boot camp and one mini boot camp over the holidays every year. We also do leadership and staff development retreats, usually at least twice a year. And this, for the most part, I try to do them off-site. Even if it's just at a local hotel, ballroom or something like that, I try to get everybody out of the school, right? A change of scenery. We call it pattern interrupt, right? Where just things look differently. And I think, we've done things like this where we're just not in the building for a while, right? You think differently, you process things differently that way. And those are very intensive, maybe a weekend retreat, 2 days or a day and a half or 3 days over a holiday or something like that. That you can really accomplish a lot when you lock everybody in a room for, 24 hours a day, right? They stay at the hotel, we're back at 6 a.m. We're done at, 1 a.m., those kind of things. So be thinking about that. And those typically tend to be bigger picture items and then combined with some grassroots stuff, right? Okay, last couple of items here, last shortcuts. Leveraging external resources is very useful, right? So courses, books, video, audio, seminars, things like this. I like to execute these, to what degree I possibly can. If it's Tony Robbins or Brian Tracy or Tom Hopkins or Steve Covey or Jay Abraham or whatever the case might be, I like to bring in these external resources that are supportive of what we're doing and can help augment their training. Remember, as a school owner, like you guys, right? Half the stuff I say, you don't hear anymore, right? You heard it the first time I said it. You probably heard it the second time I said it. But by the time I said it 6 or 7 times, it's like white noise, right? If you hear Jay Abraham say the same thing, and then you hear Colonel Larry Donathorn say the same thing, and then you hear Tony Robbins say the same thing, right? See, now you're more likely to really engage in that, right? So you want to kind of deploy that same concept when it comes to your staff. Anything that you've said more than a couple of times becomes white noise pretty quickly. And again, experiential activities I think are very useful, right? Where you go and experience these, leadership, team building, these types of experiences are very useful. We do Disney. I send all the staff to Disney Management Institute, Disney, Marketing Institute, the Disney Way to Quality Customer Service. These types of things are very, very, very useful to get perspective. And you bring those tools back to the school, right? Look at similar industries. Look at dance, cheer, gymnastics. Look at private education, public education, things like this. Churches, right? Churches that have parishioners, right? These types of things are very, very. The daycare industry, these types of things are very, very close analogs to what we're doing, and have lots of resources that are very useful. Does that make sense? So then, just to sort of wrap up, how do I select the right team members, right? Who am I looking for, right? And you hire for attitude and character, and then you train for skill, right? Now that doesn't mean that I put a sloppy looking martial artist in front of my black belt class, right? That doesn't mean I sacrifice the quality of my style of the curriculum. But what it does mean is just because you're a phenomenal martial artist does not mean that you then by default can go teach green belts or can go teach blue belts or can go teach white belts. They're separate sets of skills. Does that make sense? I would much rather have a decent quality blue belt who's become a marvelous communicator. Let's say it's an adult, who's a marvelous communicator and who's energetic and thoughtful and cares about the students, I'd rather have them lead a class, right? Than a super high 6th-degree black belt, right? Who has amazing technique, world champion martial artist, but is a horrible communicator, has no patience, can't help, doesn't understand what good self-discipline looks like for students, doesn't understand the deal, right? So I think those are some paradigms that are important, right? Does that make sense? So now, something very different for the day, as I described at the beginning of our time today. If anybody has any questions about anything that we've covered, anything that's unclear, anything that we should expand on, drop a comment in the chat area. We'll take a look at that right now. If I can't get to you live right here, I'll look at it, post hoc and try to address something in the comment section. Now, you guys bring something really valuable to the table right now, which is day to day, you're talking to school operators all day long, right? Right now, the phone, if you didn't notice it, unfortunately, the phone has been ringing kind of off the hook because we have a few of you guys here and the rest of the team downstairs is trying to cover, right? They're trying to make sure that everybody gets handled. So you guys have a really good perspective of boots on the ground, right? What especially newer clients that don't have our systems quite installed yet, right? Who don't have sort of some of these systems in place. You hear some sort of common maybe complaints or concerns or questions that they might have about this and about other things. Let's stick to staff development for today. Sean, why don't we start with you? What are you hearing from clients or newer customers where we might be able to help answer questions and maybe add some value?
I have heard this frustration from the school a lot, like owners who have implemented the staff development program. Like they're always concerned about so what if I spend all my time and money and developing and teaching the staff members, then they quit or move away or go off to college. Then what's going on? What should I do? Yeah, I can certainly understand that might be their biggest frustration sometimes, but how would you address that?
Yeah. Super common, right? Let's stick a pin in that for just 1 second. Before we do that, before we go on to open queue questions, everybody remember this. Everybody else remember this. We provide a lot of tools and strategies for our clients to help them with these challenges, right? To help them develop staff, to help them systemize their business, et cetera, et cetera. And, for the next 300 new clients here at AMS, we're doing this pro package, right? Which is really, really useful, where they get our full software suite, our full Atlas martial arts software development suite, which is, essentially, a CRM to help manage all of your students and marketing automation and many, 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 many things to help you systemize the school. Plus, we're providing a lead generation website completely free. We're providing them 100% access to all of our MA Biz Academy tools completely free, which is a huge content library with thousands of marketing tools and operational tools. Our entire social media library, we have a huge library of social media campaigns and new ones every couple of weeks that you also get access to for free. We also have, obviously, the team, right? So we have this group of folks, there's just a few of them on with us today down in our business development area, who spend all day long working with school operators all over the country and that we train with all day, all week long, right? We're spending times, optimizing business strategies for our school operators. And these guys are a wonderful resource for our clients to tap into because, for example, Sean, just as an example, has just been working with a couple of new schools out on the West Coast to implement some new Facebook advertising strategies. Well, he's going to see results of that way before anybody else does, right? So for our clients, they can call in, they can chat with him, they can chat with Sung, they can chat with Mark, they can chat with any of our team downstairs and really put their fingers on what's working in the industry right now today, right? So, we're having breakthroughs all the time, things that are working well, and sometimes things that don't work well. And we help all of our other customers get through that, right? Help all of our clients kind of understand how that works. So you get complete access to these guys. And we also provide that A to Z after school program completely free. So anybody that has questions about that or you're interested in something like that, just go to tryatlassoftware.com. I think the URL is around here somewhere, and you can get all that. You can get the information on that. So to Sean's question, I didn't mean to pin that, but to Sean's question, so I totally get it, right? I totally get it. I understand that frustration. I've had it myself, right? So here's the paradigm, and I think it's important for all of us to be very high level vision thinking about this. You have to take yourself out of the emotional argument and put yourself into the logical big picture argument. Here's what I would say. The premise is, what happens if I spend all this time and energy training and they leave? I would counter argue that statement by saying this: what happens if you don't spend any of the time and energy training them and they stay? It's far worse, right? The most dangerous thing in a martial arts school, one of the most dangerous, damaging things in a martial arts school, is an untrained and often unpaid staff member. Does that make sense? This is the person who represents you in front of the student, in front of the customer, in front of the parent, in front of the community, right? So I think what you have to do is this. You have to just get past that argument altogether and know that some staff members are going to move on to further their career, right? Some are going to move on and go to college. Some are going to have a life change, a marriage, a divorce, or whatever. They're going to have a significant life event, and it's no longer in their best interest for them to be with you. Well, for me, the instant it's no longer in their best interest, then it's not in my best interest either. Does that make sense? So I'm going to help them transition to something that they can be more successful with, that's more congruent with their future, whatever that might be. I don't care. I would rather have an absolute rock star that works for me or worked with me for 6 months and then they leave than to have a slug for the rest of their career. You know what I'm trying to say? So I hate to say it that way, but I think that's how you have to think about this. So Sean, I'm 100% sure. I'm sure you hear that a lot, especially from newer clients, right? Yeah. I think you have to mentally think about the world differently, right? And you've got to train the hell out of them, provide compensation packages, provide incentives, provide things that they need, that they're going to want to stay with you. But you cannot you can't think that it's a better decision to not train them and keep them around.
Sure.
Right. That's the worst. I think that's the worst thing in the world. Right. Does that make sense? Geez, that's crazy. Right. Anything else, guys? Anything else that might make sense, that might be useful for us to walk through? I know you guys hear this a lot, right? Anything that you've heard from clients that might be useful for us to walk through?
Yes, we get this question a lot. In fact, some owners struggle to keep their staff excited, engaged, and motivated after they've been on staff for a while.
Yeah.
So what are some strategies they can deploy to help their staff more, they can stay more engaged and excited?
Yeah. Huge issue, right? Like huge problem. Everybody has this problem, right? So I think let's categorize it in two different ways. One is this: a human being is motivated by some common things, no matter what it is, right? You're motivated by growth, right? You're motivated by self-improvement. You're motivated by new and exciting experiences, right? So nobody wants to be stuck in a position where they're not competent, right? They don't want to feel incompetent. They don't want to feel like they're out there. We've all had this happen. Even you guys, we've all had this happen. You go out into the martial arts classroom of tiny tigers, of like the little ninjas, the little guys, right? And you got one or two of them that are just spinning in circles, running all over the room, right? And you just can't get them under control, right? The class is over. I don't care what you think you are. I don't care how long you've been teaching. I don't care how big your instructor toolbox is. After that class, you're thinking to yourself, my God, I don't think I can do this, right? It's just emotionally damaging, right? So number one is, I think the first thing when it comes to contributing to the motivation level and engagement of your staff members is they have to feel competent. You have to arm them with the skills that they need to be successful. You have to constantly be training them. It's uncomfortable for a staff member when they hear an objection or they hear a complaint that they don't know how to address. Does that make sense? It's exciting for a staff member to hear an objection or to hear a complaint or a concern that they are so masterful of handling that they know before the question is even finished that they're going to turn this into a positive experience for both people. Does that make sense? It's exactly the same in teaching, right? It's the same thing. Human beings have a fundamental need for growth and expanding experiences. So I think that's up to you to provide as a school operator, right? Money compensation is a separate issue, right? It is an issue, don't get me wrong, but you all know as well as I do, I can show you some, 7-figure a year earners that are absolutely freaking miserable in what they do, right? And I can show you guys that are barely making it, who are just as happy and enthusiastic every day as they can be, right? So put compensation aside for a minute. I think it's up to the school owner to make sure that they're prepared, they're skilled, they're trained. And then I think it's also up to you to make a cool, exciting environment, right? So a lot of the things that we talked about already, whether it's cool field trips or cool experiences where they're growing and learning or things like that. I think it's up to you to make sure it's a cool place for them, right? A cool thing to do. And we all love the martial arts part of it, but at some point you got to mix it up, right? You got to be bringing new curriculum and new things to the table all the time for them to keep their motivation high. Does that make sense? So I think that's a really good place to start. Good place to start. Mark, how about you? Anything that might be really useful for us to walk through today? We have a little more time.
Yeah, if we can, I actually wanted to take that compensation piece you put on the side there and kind of bring that to light, because I've talked to quite a few new school owners that are just getting started and they want to make sure they're taking care of their staff. So what do you think would be like fair wages, compensation? What are some things in place that'll keep them, keep their attention there?
Yeah. It's tricky, right? For martial arts schools. Staff is your number one priority, in my view. The staff member is the most important human in the school, in my view. It doesn't mean that students aren't important. Of course, students are important. But if I'm not prioritizing my staff members' needs, then what kind of lessons are the students going to be getting, right? What kind of a program are they going to be getting if the staff isn't excited and well-trained and enthusiastic, right? And not stressed out every day about making their bills happen, or not, you know what I mean? Now, I can't personally take 100% responsibility for everything my staff member does with their finances, right? I can't personally be responsible for their debt obligations, but I sure as hell can take personal responsibility for helping them, preparing them, and educating them on how to be responsible with their income, how to invest well, how to take care of themselves, right? And I take that responsibility pretty seriously. Having said that, so take all what I just said into context. I believe the staff member is like the most important human in the organization. So having said that, if there's any reason beyond yourself that you want to make the school as financially successful as humanly possible, then it's the reason I just said, right? Because we want to be able to take care of that staff member really well, right? And I think the place to start is this: who is this staff person? What are their other opportunities in the marketplace right now, right? And I want to be able to pay them. We'll talk about compensation as a whole, but I want to be able to pay them 15, 20% better than their next opportunity, right? Than their next most likely opportunity, right? So if it's a teenager and it's a part-timer or something like that, and their job skills to date, qualify them to go work at McDonald's, right? Let's just say that that's the paradigm. Then I want to be able to pay them 15 to 20% better than they can make there, right? So again, if there's any reason for me to be super motivated to make the school as financially successful as possible, it's so that I can do that, so that I can provide a good high level experience for my customers, right? Through great staff members. Now, so let's just initially stick a pin in pay for a minute, and say that that's a good place to start, a good barometer to start with. The second thing to think about is we have enormous opportunity and an advantage in the martial arts, which is the mission that we're on is incredibly valuable and important, right? Exactly what McDonald's mission is, but I think ours is better, right? And I think ours is more fulfilling from a soul standpoint, right? So it's easier for us and more impactful and soul fulfilling for us to help our staff members see our vision, understand our mission, and get on board with it, right? Than it is for somebody at McDonald's or Wendy's. I'm not saying that they don't have altruistic, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I think our mission is better and more important. So I think clearly communicating the mission and the vision is very important, right, for staff to keep them really engaged in what we're doing. The next bit I think that's really important is that we have an ability in what we do to provide lots of value added, in some cases non-monetary, but lots of value added experiences, education, courses, things that we can do for our staff members that add value to their life, value to their experiences that might not cost a lot of money, right? So be considerate of that. Think of that. I'm telling you, a damn movie ticket once a month, is a big deal. It's a big deal. You didn't have to do that, but you did it. You didn't have to take him to the Batman, but you did, these kind of things. So plus it's like, what if we were going to do a high level $359 a weekend weapons training clinic? Well, maybe I have that staff member come for free or on a partial tuition or something like that, right? So there are other pieces of value that we can add to the experience. I think that are very useful. The other thing I think, so number one, we want to be competitive with other opportunities. Number next is we want to build a great mission and culture, right? That get them excited, get them out of bed in the morning. Number three is I think we have external things that we can do, external from, non-monetary things that we can contribute that make a big difference. And number four, I think is this, and it's something I want all of us to take pretty seriously. While I can't take 100% personal responsibility for their financial outcomes, right? I can't manage their spending. I sure as hell want to take time and energy to educate them, right? I want to psychologically take personal responsibility for their financial outcomes, right? I'll help them invest well. I'll help them set up retirement, help them set up and contribute to retirement accounts. I'll contribute for them and with them. We'll help them, shop for homes when it's time to do that, or shop for good, financial instrument investments and things like that, right? So anyway, I think those are some items I think that are important, right? And look, if you're not doing those things, if you're not taking good care of your staff members, which party isn't being loyal? See what I'm saying? I don't blame them for leaving. If one of you guys came to me and said, "Hey, listen, Master Milroy, I really love what we're doing here at AMS, but I can make 3x my salary over here," what do you think I would say? I do everything in my power to help you, right? And maybe there's something I can do for you here, maybe. But if there isn't, my God, I'd help you transition to something, and let's work together and transition in a smooth way that's not disruptive to the students, that's not disruptive to the school, and let me help, right? So I think if you're not doing those things, then I think you have a loyalty issue on your own side over there, if that makes any sense. Cool. So we're a little long, but let's maybe any other last questions, Sean? Anything? Maybe we'll truncate the answer.
I have one more question since you brought the staff development. So I get this question very often time from the school owners. They're asking what type of employment agreement, employee manual or a job description should they use? They're asking those questions a lot.
Yeah. I know you guys deal with this a lot. I know you deal with it a lot. And I know that your response is the same as what I'm going to say first, which is this. What's the response, Sean? What's the most important thing, first of all, for everybody to understand?
Let me be straight with you. I'm not your legal advisor. So you need to talk to your lawyer first. Your local lawyer.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
But I can give you some ideas, maybe, those things.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you better talk to your lawyer.
Yeah. So let's break that into two chunks, right? Let's break it into three chunks. Chunk number one is exactly what Sean just said. I'm not your attorney. Don't take legal advice from anyone but your attorney, not just any attorney, your attorney in your area who knows your situation, right? Having said that, I'm certainly not your lawyer. Sean is certainly not your lawyer. Having said that, here's some things I think you should think about. Number one is I 100% agree. I want to make sure that you have a solid contract, a legal agreement with your staff member for no other reason than three things. One is just clearly communicate the terms of the employment. Does that make sense? Agree on the compensation plan in writing. Agree on the terms. What are the hours, et cetera, right? Agree on that stuff in writing. Your side, their side, agree on it, right? Second is, I think, non-disclosure agreements, non-competition clauses are very important, right? You don't want somebody, stealing your customer lists, stealing your contracts and moving across the street and opening a school, right? Now, there are varying degrees of compliance, of enforceability of non-competes. Some states, they're not enforceable, right? California, they're virtually not enforceable. But I want us to agree initially, here's the deal. Any relationships that you make, any students that you meet, that is by proxy of me. That's by proxy of this business. You're not going to do anything that will be detrimental to that, right? We're going to agree on that ahead of time. However, I do like a line in the sand. And this is something that most school operators, I think differently, haven't quite thought through yet. I do not like to have and do not want to have some detailed job description, right? Or employee compliance manual that lays out all of these things about how we teach classes and how we do marketing and these kind of things, right? Here's why. Your role as a chief instructor is to grow the school. Period. Everything that entails is your role. I'm not limiting that and I'm not expanding it. That's the role, right? Your role as a program director is growing the school. That's the role, right? What I don't want to do is ever have a staff member come back to me and say, well, you asked me to go hand out flyers on 3rd Avenue, and it doesn't say right here in the employee manual that my job description is handing out flyers. No. Your job, your role, very clearly and very simply, is to grow the school. Grow our student base, grow our financial results, help with retention. All of these things are part of that, right? Does that make sense? You understand where I'm coming from? So I do think it's a very good idea and very important that we have a solid, simple employment agreement, just the terms of employment. Here's the compensation plan. Here's what I promise. Here's what you promise. Here are the baseline terms, right? Everything else, I would rather we understand initially in the initial agreement, your role is helping to grow the school and whatever that entails. Right? Makes it very simple. I also, by the way, like compensation plans. We didn't talk about this, but I like compensation plans. I've tried every version of this that you could think of. Commissioning on this, bonusing on that, commission formulas, bonus formulas, this, that, all this, right? For a martial arts school is a very simple business. And I prefer compensation plans in a martial arts school for full-time employees, for full-time team members, to basically just be a % of gross, right? Program director gets 12%, chief instructor gets 10%. You have 3% extra to pay a couple of part-timers if you want, but that's the deal. You want to make more money? Great. Get the gross up. Gross is down, right? Guess what that means? You have to have a base in most states, right? But anyway, there's a base and then the next thing. Does that make sense? And if you get base salary 1 month, we're having a discussion. If you get base 2 months in a row, we're having a serious discussion. If you get base 3 months in a row and we haven't figured out what the problem is yet, then we really need to sit down and have a conversation about how we can help you maybe move on to something that you can be more successful with and that we're all going to be happier with. You know what I mean? I know that sounds abrupt. And it's not abrupt. I mean, it's not, it's, it's a different thing, but you understand what I'm saying, right? It's very clear and very simple. If it's percent of gross, everybody knows exactly what they need to do to make more money, sense? Anything else, Sung, anything else that we can maybe address quickly here?
Yes, if you're having trouble, right? If you're having trouble finding staff internally, obviously, then you have to look like, externally, right? But where can I look externally to find like quality, like a good staff candidate?
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, if you build these systems in place, very rarely are you going to have that problem, right? But let's say you have that problem now, right? And you need a quick solution now. I think the first thing I would do is execute a staff boot camp, right? I put together, even if it's over a weekend, even if it's not in the summertime, I put together a 2 or a 3 day boot camp, recruit for it, drive traffic to it, put 30 people in it, students, parents, families, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then by the end of the 3 days, you might have 2 or 3 people that are really good candidates, right? But if I was going to look externally, as I described, I'd start with like my business partners, the people that I interact with in the community. And then I would look at the same place you look for school teachers. There's usually an index of all the substitute school teachers in your district. And there's usually like an index of all the, former school teachers or, things like this. That's a great place to start. Looking for fitness-minded people who want to work with kids. No martial arts experience necessary. That's kind of how I think I approach that. If they have martial arts experience, that's okay, but it usually doesn't help me all that much. What I want is somebody who's good with kids, right? Look at you look at youth groups, YMCAs, Boy Scout troops, things like that, church groups, those kind of things. Those are great, like fishing grounds, right? For good people that can make good staff members, if that makes any sense. I think that's where I would start. Good. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Mark, anything else? Maybe a final question to go, or anything else?
If you wouldn't mind, I mean, when we're expanding on like selection of an individual, we want to make sure we're looking for certain attributes or characteristic traits that we want to see in our staff. So, what are those characteristic traits? What do you think would be, in your opinion, something to keep an eye out for when I'm hiring or interviewing somebody?
Yeah. So I think there was a slide on it, but the short version of it, I think Tom Peters said it, but I think it was actually someone else's quote earlier. Tom Peters wrote about it in Search of Excellence, I think. But it's hire for attitude, train for aptitude is his version of it. And I like hire for attitude and character, and then train for aptitude and skill, right? And I mean, attitude is kind of easy to quantify, to describe. I mean, you want good people, you want nice people. You know what a good example is? Look at Chick-fil-A, right? Agree with their politics or don't agree with their politics or whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, but look at what they've created there. And there was actually a great article in Harvard Business Review 6 months ago or so. And the headline of the article was very kind of funny. It said, Chick-fil-A cracks the age-old code of customer service, ... Just hire nice people. Right? So now instead of having, I'll give you another example. Here's another good example. As you guys well know, and maybe many of our attendees, I've done all the commercially available Disney training that there is, right? And we send the staff there. We send, we bring in their materials. We do the online stuff. We do all sorts of stuff. And one of the first courses that I took was a customer service course. And I was actually shocked because for me, I was looking for systems, right? I was looking for how systemized Disney was. And they are, to be sure, they are very systematized. But when the facilitator on the third day of the course took us out into the park and we did a bunch of show and tell stuff, he took us around everything, all the behind the scenes there, all the kind of very, very, very cool. We went to the hot dog cart, right? And this is at Disneyland in California. And, I was looking all over because we could go wherever we wanted to. We had the pass. We could kind of get wherever we wanted. And I was looking behind the thing and I'm looking around for the manual and the laminated card and all this stuff that says, listen, when a little kid drops their hot dog, right? give them a replacement hot dog as soon as humanly possible, right? Before that hot dog even hits the ground, right? We want to see the other hot dog going into the bun, getting out to the kid, right? Before the first tier hits the ground because the ice cream cone fell, right? We want a team member, a cast member over there with a new ice cream cone, right? Well, so I'm looking all over the place and I don't see it, right? I don't see the what if this happens manual anywhere, right? I'm looking around to see where they get this thing authorized by a supervisor. I'm looking around for all this stuff. And so I finally asked the facilitator and the cast member, hey, what happens if somebody drops their hot dog? And the guy goes, oh my God, well, we better give him a hot dog. I mean, the kid bought a hot dog, right? And I said, yeah, but where do you check off on that? Or where's the manual or whatever? And he's like, he said these words to me and it like was a spear through my soul, right? It was one of those kind of like Zen turning words, right? Here's what he said. Just how we do things here, right? It's the culture they've created, right? They're not worried about the $7 hot dog, right? They know that it costs 9 cents, right? They're worried about the guest experience. That's what they're worried about, right? So that's just how you do things. And that starts with selecting the right staff members based on their attitude. Now, they don't put the guy behind the hot dog counter that when the little kid drops the hot dog, the guy goes, not again. He's not at Disney. You know what I'm saying? That guy doesn't get a job. You know what I'm saying? He works at McDonald's, right? He doesn't work at Disney. I'm just saying, I'm making a glittering generality, but you get the idea. You don't get teeth suck, eye roll. Oh my God, here we go again, right? That guy didn't get hired, you know? So I think that's the deal. You look at it like Disney would. Who is the family-friendly, outgoing, personable, good communicator with a great attitude that I could put in front of a class, and no matter what happened, the guy's going to respond the way I want him to respond. Not read the script, but just because that's how he feels. He wants to take care of these people. You know what I'm saying? I had one more example of that. I think Master Chang, Sean, one of our friends, Master Chang from Carolina. One of his observational staff selection criteria is called the dirty Band-Aid technique. You guys know what the dirty Band-Aid technique is? Sean knows. So the dirty Band-Aid technique is you take a Band-Aid and you go crumple it up and you put some dirt on it and you might put a little ketchup on it or something like that. You just make it look crappy, right? And when nobody's looking, you go out and stick the dirty Band-Aid on the mat somewhere, right? And then you just watch it. Any instructor, assistant instructor, team leader, class leader, or even student, if anybody goes and sees that and they pick it up and they go throw it in the trash, or they go get a napkin or a paper towel and they pick it up and they throw it in the trash, that's your guy. Does that make sense? Right? He didn't just leave it sit there. Now, if you see one of your paid staff members look at it and walk away, you got to have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I think that's kind of how I think about the world, right? I'm looking for the right attitude, the right type of person. Whether their martial arts skill is shaky, that's okay with me. I can fix that. I can get them to be higher level skill, martial artist. What I can't do is unwire their childhood from 20 years ago. I can't make them a nicer person. I can make them a nicer person, but maybe not as fast and as much as I need. You know what I'm saying? So you just hire nice people. Makes it a hell of a lot easier. All right, cool. Well, guys, listen, we ran over by about 15 minutes. So let's call it a day. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I really appreciate the help and the feedback. Everybody else, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry we ran a little bit over, but I hope you agree that it was worth the time. And I hope you agree it was worth a few extra minutes to kind of clear up some of these items. If you have any questions at all about anything we talked about today, or anything that these guys asked or you have questions for them, here's how you can mechanize that, right? Put a comment in the chat area, right? Down below, drop your email address, make a comment. I'll have the guys, keep an eye on that. Give us a call here at 800-275-1600, or you can go to tryatlassoftware.com and there's a little form there that you can fill in to contact, and we can get in touch with you that way, or you can get in touch with us that way. So I guess that's it. I think that's all for our day today. So thank you guys again so much. Thank you guys, everybody, thanks guys for stopping in. Sean, Sung, Mark, thank you. Thanks for taking the time out of the day. Everybody else, thank you so much. We'll speak again soon. Be safe, guys.